Hey guys, get ready for another fun day in biology. Dissecting Ernie the Earthworm. Okay, get your dissecting pad or tray. You should have 2 probes, a pair of scissors, a pair of forceps, and 8 to 10 dissecting pins. You're also going to need your earthworm. You can rinse it under water and pat it dry if you don't like the smell. It kind of helps get rid of the smell. And as always, you need your dissecting guide. So get those things and we'll get rolling. Okay, first and foremost, again, a review on some positions. Dorsal, back side. On the earthworm, it's the darker side, and you'll see the dorsal blood vessel. The ventral side or belly is the lighter side. Also, anterior and posterior. You sit on your posterior, you think with your anterior end. So the posterior end is the anus or the back end of the earthworm. The anterior end is the head end. And the way we tell the difference is by looking for the clitellum, this part of the earthworm right here. This is the anterior or head end. The clitellum is closer to the head end. This is the posterior end. You're going to look at visualize the dorsal blood vessel. Sometimes on the ventral side you can see the ventral blood vessel, but it's kind of hard. You are definitely going to look at the diagram in your dissecting guide and locate sperm ducts and possibly the genital CT. The genital CT are a little bit harder to find, but if you use your stereoscope you might be able to visualize them. The sperm duct's very easy to see on the ventral side. The clitellum, which we just showed you, also pretty easy to find. And also, the way that the earthworm moves, it has CT or little bristles. And if I run my finger or my thumb from posterior to anterior, I can sometimes feel the CT catching against my glove. And that's what it uses to kind of pull through the dirt. So once you've finished with the external anatomy and you have labeled things in the external anatomy part of your dissecting guide, you're ready to move on to the internal anatomy. Now, for the internal anatomy, it oftentimes is going to take 3 hands to get things done. So you and your partner need to work together on this one. Okay, you are going to want to place your earthworm dorsal side up. That's the darker side. And if your earthworm is kind of twisted, you're just going to kind of have to work with it and kind of flatten it a little bit. You're going to take 1 dissecting pin and about 1 hand width or 4 fingers width, I'm going to put a dissecting pin through just to the right or left of the dorsal blood vessel and just anchor my earthworm in place. And then I'm going to take the scissors and I'm going to now come probably about 2 finger widths from the clitellum, so about 2 finger widths from the pin, and I'm going to very gently insert just the tip of my scissors into the skin, and I'm going to make little tiny snips, and I'm going to pull up as I'm snipping, and I'm going to cut the skin only. Be very, very careful. This is it is kind of delicate. I'm going to go all the way through the clitellum, following just to the side of the dorsal blood vessel, and I'm going to go for right now about 1 finger width to the head. We'll cut all the way through to the head in just a bit. So now I have a cut. The next part of this is where it's going to take 3 hands. You are going to use the probe. Actually, you're going to use 2 probes. You're going to start with 1. You're going to gently insert it under the skin, just kind of pulling up, and you're going to gently run it back and forth. Each segment on the earthworm has little muscles and a little divider called a septa, and they hold everything together inside. Well, I want to break those septa so that I can open the skin of my earthworm and look inside. So one person is going to use both probes, and you're going to hold part of the skin down like this, and a third person, or third hand, your partner, and I've done this a bunch so I can do this myself, but this is where it takes two of you to do this. You are going to pin the skin down, and you want your pin to be as flat as possible. Okay, my pin is not sticking straight up and down like that. Okay, my pin is almost laying down. So you want to go through the skin and under the body. I'm going to come around on the other side and do the same thing. I'm going to very gently break the septa. And then I'm going to hold the skin open like that while my partner comes in and puts a pin through the skin and flat. And I'm going to do this all the way up until I get almost to the end of my cut. Once I've gotten to the end of my cut, I'm going to get my scissors and continue the cut up to the mouth and continue opening it. Okay, you can see here where I've come all the way up and I see a dark line running up. This is all intestine here. I see a dark line, that's my dorsal blood vessel. And when I get up here, I start to see some other organs. I still want to break the septa and pin open, but at this point I'm also going to cut again with the sharp tip, and I'm going to cut all the way to the head, again pulling up on the skin so as not to damage the organs underneath. And I'm going to continue to pin open. As I get up into this area, as I'm pulling the skin back, I also want to be very careful. Break just these white threads, the septa, because as I get up here, the aortic arches are there, and I don't want to destroy those because I do want to be able to look at those under the stereoscope. Okay, so now I have everything pinned, and remember, the pins are flat. That allows me to see things within here. If the pins are straight up and down, your field of vision is very, very limited. These large white pieces, I'm going to take those off. That's part of the reproductive system called the seminal vesicles. And again, I'm going to use the probe, if I need to break the septa. There's a little aortic arch, so I want to be careful. I just want these white, they're white, kind of very soft, spongy things. Be careful not to take this black little thing. It looks like a little black sausage. So I'm going to pull as much of this the white stuff, the seminal vesicles. Okay, now this back here, do not pull that out. Okay, this stays here. It's just all this white stuff. Okay, now we can get a good look at the digestive and the circulatory system. This is the pharynx up here. The pharynx is very muscular. The pharynx brings the food in. Actually, an earthworm eats dirt. The pharynx attaches to the esophagus, and the esophagus runs underneath the dorsal blood vessel. So you're not going to be able to see the esophagus very well at all unless you put it under the stereoscope. The dorsal blood vessel, though, runs right here along its back side, and in this dissection we can clearly visualize 1, 2, 3, 4 aortic arches. The fifth one is probably hidden in here. If I put it under the stereoscope, I should be able to find it. Aortic arches are like they're like little donuts around the earthworm. The ventral blood vessel connects them at the bottom, and the dorsal blood vessel connects them at the top. So they have a closed digestive system. After the aortic arches, under the dorsal blood vessel is a grayish organ that is really kind of soft. This is the crop. The crop is a storage facility. It is followed by the gizzard. The gizzard is very hard and muscular, and the gizzard does all the grinding for the earthworm. And then it's intestine, 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 anus. So the earthworm is mostly intestine. So you should be able to visualize on your earthworm parts of the reproductive system, the genital CT possibly, the seminal, the sperm ducts definitely, the seminal vesicles. You should be able to visualize much of the digestive system, and you should be able to visualize the main parts of the circulatory system. Be sure you're filling in your dissection guide as you're working, and when you clean up, again, everything goes in a paper towel, clean off all instruments, and get ready for the end of class. See you later, guys.